Okay, plane is circling at 200 feet. It's not too windy today, but there's some thermal activity. I'm going to try to follow this. See if I catch it. And it's flying pretty nice. Okay, here's the first thing I wanted to show. The airplane is up flying live right now, and I really wanted to see how all my little slidey indicators worked. And as you can see, they're all live updating. For each indicator, there's a vertical white bar that shows sort of the long-term average, and then a cyan horizontal bar that shows the range or the standard deviation over time. So you can kind of keep track of what your battery's doing, see if there's any cause for concern, like with your avionics voltage. You can watch your IMU temperature. You can look at some of your, I created this little EKF, INS, GNS gauge, so you can look at things like satellite and PDOP and your position, velocity accuracy, your attitude accuracy, and your biases, just to keep track of your EKF, make sure that is all performing well. And then also your flight controls, just to see what they're doing. Sometimes that could potentially be an early indication of a problem if a flight control suddenly decides it needs to be in a radically different position. So that's what we got going on here on this display. And that was one of the things I wanted to try to do in this flight, is just really monitor and check out all these gauges in actual flight. And they are doing their job. And the plane is up flying. It's doing an interesting route, which I will show you next. Okay, airplane is up flying a parametric route, so a rose pattern. And we can kind of hopefully see it here. Oh, it's hard to film. It's centered around the center of the runway. I'm the only one out here at the field, so I am violating airspace under the club rules. Sorry, club. But I am the only one out here, so I'm not endangering anyone. You can see it's flying in and out. And it's set up to gain altitude at the extreme at the perimeter and drop altitude at the center. Also slows down. The flight controller actually pulls the speed back, and the throttle compensates when it gets out to the fringe there where it's at right now. And then as it comes back towards the center, it dives a little bit and accelerates. And it's just sort of supposed to look zoomy and pretty. There isn't really a functional mission reason to do this other than I can. And it may possibly lead to some other interesting flight control profiles later on. Okay, the airplane is still up and flying. And I'm going to take my sunglasses off because I can't see the screen with them on. So we can see there's evidence of a circle hold, that it's kind of right near the middle of that circle. You can see the pattern made in the red. Ignore the blue for a second. And then it transitioned from that circle hold to this rose pattern. And the way it's implemented is the airplane, as far as it cares, is just doing a circle hold. And meanwhile, it's got some Python running on board the airplane that knows the pattern it's supposed to fly and the algorithm. And so it's continually moving the circle center and radius, and the airplane is chasing it. And so the algorithm keeps track of where in this parametric equation the airplane currently is, and it's continually varying the circle to match, and the airplane is continually chasing it, and then it makes this pretty pattern. And I forgot the SD card for my onboard video, which really bums me out. Um, you can remember everything and forget one little thing, and that's life when you flight test. And checklists sometimes help, and sometimes it's a thing that's not on your checklist, like the SD card for your camera, which maybe will go back on will go on to the checklist at some point soon. So there you go. This is just going to repeat forever until I tell it to do something different. Hopefully we'll get a good auto land at the end of this flight. I don't know if we can see the status bar up here. Air temp is about 11 degrees Celsius, maybe a little bit more because I just saw it bounce up to 12 and back down. Winds are really light, 2 knots. Been flying for almost 18 minutes. It says 65% of the battery is left. That bounces up a little bit and down a little bit as it varies the throttle. And then we got 17 satellites, and the EKF is all in the green. Call sign is EDUNE2 because we crashed EDUNE1 and had to make EDUNE 2. Okay, I am really impressed with how well this is tracking and the beautiful spirograph patterns it's making. It's not completely perfect because it can't quite hang through some of those tight turns at the very fringe when there's wind. This is kind of a set up to be fairly minimal for this flight speed. I could slow it down a little bit, but I'm just going to let it run like this. What I'm hoping then is to develop the ability to fly tight spline curves by tracking the radius. So not just sort of chasing, but also chasing position, but also chasing position and bank angle to be right on the spline curve. And that might allow, again, I'm reaching a little bit for a use case, but there's been some times when landing approaches are tough to make just straight in because of the direction of the wind and trees, obstacles. It would be really handy to be able to kind of snake your final approach in, duck inside a tree line, and turn final late, and some sort of spline curve following might be really useful for that, although it might be one of those things that only Kirk does because it's kind of too far out there for anyone else to worry about. So there's our rose pattern. It's looking pretty good. Now our circle hold is sort of expired off the end of the line, so we get about 10 minutes of flight track or so. You can see. So you can see this getting more and more pretty as the old stuff goes away and kind of cleans up the mess on the screen naturally. So there we go. That's something I wanted to test for quite a while and didn't get around to it until today. Okay, I'm going to try to record the aircraft shadow. Don't know if I'm going to get it. Maybe I will. Here it comes. That was it. Super exciting. So we're 40 minutes into this flight, and I have my sunglasses on, so with polarization I can't see the screen to see if it's pointing at me, but it's hopefully close. Plane is doing well. There's maybe 40% battery, 35% battery left. I don't plan to run it too low. And I've just put it in a circle hold for now. Should have just passed right past the sun. And we're just hanging out here, watching it fly around, just burning time, watching things, making sure all the needles stay where they should and where I expect them to, and learning where to expect them to be under different circumstances. So far, everything's super smooth except for no onboard video because I left the SD card in my little SD card reader at home, which I'm still frustrated about because I get super exciting video from onboard. Okay, let's see here. All right. One more pass. And then you can hear the throttle running up and down as it flies in and out of thermals. And